Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Pocket Theology. Today, Jason and I are talking about everything a little bit. We have a conversation about the Enneagram. We talk about personal growth and assessment. We talk about pride and the challenges that it presents. So if that sounds interesting or encouraging, we're so glad you're here. Thanks for being patient with us as we took a week off there. But this is most likely part one of a part two discussion because we talked about so much, it got a little long. So thanks for listening. We're so glad you're here. Yeah, but we're still testing audio, but yeah, do it.
No, I mean, these are the good conversations that we get beforehand.
Oh, for
So
sure.
here's the thing that with all personality tests, and let's not even call them tests, assessments.
Yeah,
Because
evaluations.
I don't like tests. Tests makes it sound like you're passing or failing, right?
Sure.
With
yeah.
all personality assessments or self-work. Let's call it better yet.
Actually, I do. Yeah, I like that term, self-work.
Because that's so one of the dangers that comes with Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, Strength Finders is you go, well, this is who I am, and now so I'm going to lean into this, right?
Yeah.
And it's a very common one, and in fact, I think the hardest part of leadership is that the reason why you do those assessments is to find out how your personality might be getting in the way of your growth.
Yeah, that's really fair. Yeah, because I saw it in that, and actually it was expanded upon in our conversation with Jason Gray after the concert, where I realized that one of the things that's holding me back from a really, really strong relationship with God is I feel like if I don't understand something, I can't become invested in it.
Yep.
And so God, this unknowable, all-powerful, miraculous wonder, the wonder of God, to me is intimidating because I can't authentically know everything.
Yeah.
Right? But I can authentically know God, but the limitation scares me, which is interesting. And I don't think I could have told you about that one without that assessment, knowing that, oh yeah, if I don't understand something fully, my investment goes way down.
Oh yeah.
And then to expand upon that with Jason, I was like, oof.
Well, so let's use Enneagram language. As
Yeah.
a 4, you also have that 5 wing,
Mm-hmm.
and the 5 loves information to protect itself.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what happens is some people, if they don't have the satisfaction of knowing, it's not worth knowing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's hard.
Right. And this is why I think the most difficult part of, let's talk about our relationship. So, and again, I know people are tuning in right now. We had Jason Gray concert, and I had I've actually known him a little bit from a side perspective, a mutual friend of ours.
Yeah, you guys had like a connected relationship, kind of a string there, yeah.
From someone very close to both of us.
Cool.
And so I've known about him, never had long-term conversations.
Yeah.
So we did dinner with him, me and another friend of ours. And then after the concert, he came over, and then me, you, and your wife and him hung out.
Yeah.
And
she was so excited about that, by the way. Thank you for extending the invitation. She was like, I listened to him growing up, so it's just so cool to just...
So let's talk about the self-assessment stuff. This is perfect, right? Okay.
Yeah.
As an Enneagram 7, my normal 7-ness is my own experiences. That's what 7s tend to be. They're focused on their own joy. But I'm a social 7.
Yeah. So you like to invite people in?
Mine is more about your experience than mine. In fact, the better experience you have, the better experience I have.
Sure, right. The more the merrier kind of deal.
Right. And so I was like, the downside of that is sometimes I don't take care of myself.
Oh.
Or
you let how their experience affect yours.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so hanging out with Jason, and that's not our story to share what he shared with us.
Yeah,
but,
no, of course.
It was fun because here you are, you're talking about the stuff we talked about there and how it's impact on you and your own personality. And, as a 7, it's no wonder that one of the things we talked about is that part of my deconstruction in my own faith, and there's a difference between destruction and deconstruction.
Yep, yeah.
Part of my deconstruction was I wanted all the same information you did, because as a 7, I also have that 5 side of me that goes down to I do like to have information. And in fact, the more secure I am, the less attached I am to my own experience than I am to just being present.
Yeah,
Right.
that's really what it is. I didn't even really measure the language as wanting information to protect myself, but now after just hearing you say that, that's very accurate. Protecting my experience. Yeah.
And so let's go back to what this all started because you took a self-assessment.
Yeah.
And just to kind of help you grow. And what did you take it for? Was it just because?
Well, so you had gifted me that productive pastor planner.
Yep.
And some applications of it are applicable to my life. I'm not a pastor, so some of it's a little different. But the heart of the book is the same, and that's it wants you to be productive. It wants you to assess what God's doing.
So you're actually using the book.
Yeah.
Well, praise God.
I told you I would, man.
Yeah. No, you said you would, but everybody says they would. Oh yeah, I'll totally use this.
Thank you. I'll totally use this frying pan that you gave me. Or thank you for the socks. No, I really value accountability, and you gave me a book that asks that, and so it provoked the quiz or the assessment. It's inside the book, so it only took like 6 minutes, but it was great.
Awesome. And so one of the things you learned in it was that if you don't have all the information, or if you don't feel like you have it all, then you're not fully invested.
Not that I'm not even fully invested.
Okay.
I think that's part of the weakness.
Okay.
Part of the protecting is if I don't have all the information, I actually feel unequipped and I get anxious.
So it's the lack of equipping.
Yep.
Of feeling, because you don't want to look foolish or dumb or whatever.
No, and I also don't want to do a bad job.
Yeah.
You've placed an expectation on me. If I'm not fully aware of what that expectation is or the means in which to accomplish that, I've failed you.
Yeah.
And that hurts me a lot.
Yeah.
It's a both and, where it's like I'm struggling because I don't feel equipped, and so I'm like beating myself up. But then there's also the risk of failure. So then there's that 3-wing in there too. That fear of failure. So the 3 and the 5, and they just combine into this, and then the 4 where it's like, oh, my lack. All the time. It's just this wonderful little spiral.
So it's from a leadership and a growth perspective, and this is what we were talking about. The danger with all personality assessments, and this is actually one of the reasons why I appreciated the Enneagram. The Enneagram is actually one of the only assessments that really gets into the shadow side of stuff.
Yeah.
To really ask the question of, stop talking about all the great things you do.
Yeah.
What do you do when you're not so great?
Yeah.
Right. And instead of ignoring those or making excuses, how can you work past them?
Yeah. I like the Enneagram because it gets down to the who, not the do.
Yes.
Where other things, like, just for example, like the Zodiac, it's like, you're going to do this.
Yeah.
This is what you're going to do this week. You're going to do. It's like, it's who you are. Stems what you do.
Yeah, well, so in Enneagram language, and it's so funny, there was a season there when we first started doing it as a church, and I do some training with Enneagram. And
You've done seminars before, like churches have invited you,
yep,
right?
I've had churches and organizations that have asked me to come and do Enneagram work.
That's cool. That's cool.
And it's a great tool, but that's all it is. It's a tool, right?
It's a tool.
And one of the things that I found is, like all things, if you're not careful, you'll define yourself by the thing that you've read, and especially if it affirms something in you, because most of us are, this is just a personal opinion, I have nothing to back this up, okay? But it's my own experience, and I think it's probably relevant. I think most people are looking for things that affirm their identity, because we struggle with identity so much. So when something speaks to us, we lean in doubly hard. And there's some good parts of that, because I think we do struggle with who we are whenever we find something like, yes, that's it. That's right. I remember the first time I read the Enneagram 7. Okay, so one of the things that I talked about my deconstruction, I just bounced all over.
It's fine.
A minute ago, right?
We didn't plan on talking about this.
No, this was not part of our conversation
great,
at all. So it was interesting because 7s are sometimes seen as the Peter Pan number, the generalist, the enthusiast. They're sometimes called the most childlike number, because they're excitable. In fact, Jason Gray, when we're hanging out, and he goes, when I said I was a 7, he goes, yeah, I could see the 7 glimmer in your eye.
Wow.
And he actually said that. He goes, I can see that you have that 7 glimmer, that sparkle in the eyes of a 7.
I'm laughing at myself.
And then I'm like, and it's kind of true.
Yeah.
Because, like, life excites me.
Yeah, man. That's awesome.
And
And then people would say, I can tell you're a 4 by the way you're moping. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, but okay, so here's my point. So in my deconstruction,
Yeah.
I've had 4 or 5 seasons of deconstruction in my faith,
Mm.
and some of them were scary.
Yeah.
And this is where my personality. So I'm gonna tie the proverbial knot.
Bring
here.
it all in.
Gonna bring it all in. Okay. There was one sense in my theology, especially when I was doing my MDiv, Masters of Divinity. Sorry, I'm making an assumption that people know what that term means. You're studying Paul and theology, and you're writing work. You're writing papers and having conversations in class and defending positions, and I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
intellectually,
that sounds so fun.
Oh, it's honestly the part I miss about school.
Really.
Okay? But what I started doing, because so much of seminary, and in fairness, I didn't really go to a seminary. I went to a university.
Sure.
And it didn't have a seminary program. Now, do you know what makes something a seminary and not a seminary?
Like in the fine print? No, I don't.
Okay, so this is what determines if something is a seminary versus not a seminary. The library. In order to be technically a seminary, you have to have a seminary library.
Sure.
Now, I'm
so
sure
there's certain articles and
I
things
don't.
in it.
I'm not even going to say I fully understand, and I'm sure there's other nuances to it.
Yeah.
But when I was at Northwestern, it used to be Northwestern College, then it moved to university status, which I don't know what that means. But the reason why we were not a seminary,
it has to do with enrollment. Like
it might be enrollment or credits. No, because there are small seminaries.
Okay.
Oh, I mean university versus college. Yeah, I don't. All I know is university is more prestigious than college, and seminary has a different, especially in theological and churches. Seminary is the thing,
right?
Because there are schools that have masters of divinities, but they don't have a seminary.
Sure.
And we always associate a seminary as with the only place you can get a master's of divinity.
I don't want us to trail too far off of this.
No, because it's going somewhere.
I do have a very fast question.
Yeah.
Have you run into struggles with telling people you went to a university and not a seminary?
Yes.
Really?
In church circles, because they assume only a seminary is a valid place.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So the reason why Northwestern, at least according to my professors and the president who was over the master's program, is we didn't have the money to build a seminary library. And we wanted to share it with another local school, and they wouldn't let us. So you can actually become a seminary as long as you have access to the library, and they recognize it, and they didn't. Now, I'm sure there are other nuances, not an expert, but this was what I was told.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyways, when I was in school, part of what I loved about school, especially I carried over from my teen years, I loved having answers, and I loved being right. I really enjoyed being right.
Sure.
And whenever I could prove somebody wrong, man, it checked so many boxes for me.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think through, like, what is that might be the one side of my 7.
Sure.
Right? The perfectionist, right?
Yeah.
And I was very stressed out as a kid. So I was always in stress.
Yeah.
And while in school, man, it checked all the boxes for me, because now not only did I have a piece of paper, which who cares about a piece of paper, but I had a piece of paper that said, yeah, you now have some level of authority, whatever that means.
Yeah.
But it also, man, it grounded, like, here's why I believe what I believe. Here are the scriptures. Here's the theological positions, why I believe it.
Yeah, man.
And one of the things that I appreciated about Northwestern, it's not a Lutheran seminary. It's not a Baptist seminary. Actually, I think it has evangelical free roots. Billy Graham was the president of the seminary at one point. But they didn't teach me Lutheran theology.
Right.
They didn't teach me Baptist theology. In fact, we had a wide range of professors.
That's cool.
And adjunct professors from different schools of thought. And so, like, I had a professor who was a full 5-point Calvinist, like, dyed in the wool, everything was Calvinism. And then I had professors who were like, yeah, I'm not really a Calvinist. And so they taught us to think theologically.
Yeah.
Not just a specific vein or branch of theology.
That's so valuable.
Right. And there were some weaknesses to it as well. But, in one sense, I can't say I'm as well versed in a particular. If you go to Lutheran seminary, they're going to make sure you understand Lutheran theology.
Sure. Is MI Lutheran?
Master's Institute does.
Yeah, sorry. Yep, made the same assumption.
I believe it was started by Lutherans. Actually, I think some people from the charismatic Lutheran renewal movement from the who came out of that vein, I think.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I've known several of the presidents of it.
Sure.
Who have been actually Pear.
Yeah, Pear was who was just here.
Mike Bradley.
Yeah, cool.
But the reason why I loved it is it checked some boxes in my personality that I leaned into. And when the church that I was pastoring closed after I got my master's degree, my master's of divinity, and now I'm technically trained and I'm supposed to have all this knowledge. I say it in a very coy way. We got the church healthy enough to let it die.
Yeah.
And as I was looking for jobs and positions, that actually upended a lot of my theology, because here's what I was believed. I don't know that I was taught it. I think it's what I believed.
Caught, not taught?
Yes, I think it was what I caught.
Yeah.
Or just my own personal
Sure.
idiosyncrasies,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Might have been nobody's fault. Just something
Constructed.
Yeah, just something I constructed to
Yeah.
protect myself. I
Sure.
don't know. I always thought, if you teach the right theology, you teach it the right way, and you're bold about it, and you say hard things, and you're not afraid to confront things and you make good leadership decisions, or what you think are good leadership decisions, the church is going to grow. And it didn't.
Yeah.
And I thought, if you do this, people will become excited about Jesus and want to grow in their discipleship, and it didn't.
Yeah.
And so when the church closed and we had to move and all those types of things, all of a sudden I was like, I don't know if any of this stuff is real. And that's what begins the journey of deconstruction.
Yep.
Okay, now this isn't a deconstruction conversation. It was originally a personality assessment conversation. Okay, so here's what happened. I ended up leaning into a part of my personality that I had forgotten.
Interesting.
So as a 7, 7s are people who love wonder. The healthy side of a 7.
Yeah.
Healthy side of 7 loves the possibility of what's next and what's new.
Yeah.
And I had lost that with God.
Yeah.
Because what I started doing is I leaned into here are the certainties. I need to have all these scriptures. Systematic theology is typically what it's called, and systematic theology has its place. Let's be clear. There's nothing bad about it, but it has some weaknesses.
Yeah.
Right. And when my faith started getting tested and I went into that wilderness journey, I had to lean out of my 7-ness so that I could actually become more of who I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting. Even though 7s love wonder, the unhealthy side of that is sometimes we're always looking for wonder, hoping that next thing will satisfy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Instead of just delighting in God.
Yeah.
Okay. So now here's where I'm going to tie the proverbial bow. Okay. So as you're looking at your personality assessment, the dangers of all of our personalities is if we lean into it too much, instead of a gift, it becomes a curse. And we can use it to become an excuse for a lack of growth, but we trick ourselves into saying, no, this is just how I'm wired. And that's the hardest part about personality, because there's part of it that is a gift. I believe personality is a gift from God.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
He created us unique and individual with certain gifts and ideations and certain, things that provoke joy from us, and certain things don't.
And that's what God has gifted you certain things,
yeah,
right?
That's so great.
So but the downside is, because of our human nature, our brokenness, we also like to lean into things too much, either to defend ourselves, protect ourselves, or because we don't want to actually acknowledge, if I get out of here, I'm going to be so out of my comfort zone that maybe I'll lose myself. And I think if some people are honest, I would say if most people are honest, one of the fears that a lot of people have is, I don't want to lose who I am by exploring something that's outside of me. And I don't know if people can articulate it. And here's what I mean by that is, this is the common thing. I am who I am. I'm not going to change for you. Don't ask me to be somebody else. I hear this and it's not even, they're not even trying to be mean about it. It's because I think some people, they think that when you go into personality assessments, the goal is to somehow get rid of your personality.
Right.
When in reality, the goal is to refine it so that your personality is no longer controlling you, you're controlling it.
Yeah.
And so back to our original conversation. So as you're looking at your assessments and these things, and I can't tell you what this means for you, but I think one of the challenges that would be helpful is you go, okay, I need all the information. And if I don't have that information, it's hard for me because I don't want to fail. When are you going to have all the information?
Never.
And so how much are you missing?
I know.
Because so right, and so
it's something it's head knowledge, but heart knowledge is so different.
And let's even go deeper than God knowledge.
Yeah.
Because God is outside of your head and heart.
Yeah.
You can't contain God.
Yeah. So you said that you'd lost or forgotten a part of your personality, which led into some of those areas of struggle.
Yeah.
And I sometimes think that they say that the Enneagram 4 is about beauty, trying to make the world beautiful, or searching for beautiful things, or things like that. And
It's balancing the outside with the or the inside with the outside. It's I wish the world could reflect what I feel and hear. It's equanimity is the word that they're always looking for,
and
or equilibrium.
and I sometimes think, because we go to 1 in health, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so there's a perfectionist side, and there's a systematic side, and then there's the informational side. And sometimes I feel like I try
I
to
had to think about. It's been so long since I've talked about this.
and me too. Sometimes I feel like I try to force beauty into the world, be it by systemic organization or gathering of information, to I try to just make the world beautiful, right? And I don't allow its natural beauty to just. I just don't allow myself to enjoy that. And so there's a natural beauty in the unknowable nature of God.
Yeah.
But it's scary to me.
Okay, so you want to hear something really
Yeah.
interesting?
Yeah.
So when I was doing probably some of my deepest shadow work,
Sure.
and I was trying to figure out how do I get outside of my 7 so that I'm not a 7.
Yeah, you like just
7
escape
is
it.
7 is not who I am.
No,
I'm-
exactly. Right. Yeah.
So-
Once you get into that language, it's like, no, I am this. Like, oof. Ugh.
Yep, and but here's what's interesting. I actually pull from the 4,
Mm.
and here's how. I realized I'm like, okay, so as a 7, 7s in stress go to the 1, the perfectionist, and what the perfectionism is, and this is how I know when I'm stressed out. The dishes aren't in the dishwasher the right way. I start like this.
It's the micro.
Who would do this? This is stupid. Like this is the dumbest. Like you don't know. You don't put the cups here. You put the cups here. And I'm like, what a dumb. And normally I don't care about that stuff. That's how I know I'm stressed. Or I'm always fixating on the next thing. Right. When 7s are in health, I go to the 5, and in the 5 I become non-attached to experiences, and in fact I can just be fully present in the moment because 7s are always thinking about the next thing. Tends to be the lie, right? It's the dark side of wonder. I wonder what's over there. I wonder what's over there. I wonder what's over there. Instead of, wow, all of this is wonderful.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I started looking at this, and okay, now the 1 goes to the 4 in stress.
Okay. Kind of opposite.
Yep. And that's actually how you know where you go in health, is what it goes to. So 1 goes to 7 in health. 1s can let go of perfectionism and just enjoy experiences, right? So I started looking and going, and this is part of the work that whenever you're doing self-work, if you look at the 1 or whatever your number is, find out what the thing it goes to and say, okay, what can I learn from that? And one of the things that 4s do incredibly well is just appreciate beauty. But in order to appreciate beauty, you have to be present in the moment.
Yeah, that's true.
And so what I started doing is I'm like, okay, what is beautiful around me right now? So I started leaning into the 4 because I learned from the 1. What does the 1 do when it's stressed out? It's trying to make the world beautiful by controlling it instead of just letting go. Well, what does the 4 do when it actually goes to the beautiful side of 1, which just says, this is good. It's good to have differences. It's good that there are not everything, it's good to live in pain sometimes. It's good to enjoy beauty. Instead of always trying to fix things, it's present in them, right?
Yeah.
And so that's as you're doing your work and looking at that, that's always the hardest part is, okay, what am I limiting myself? And here's something that for those who are listening, part of our cultural dynamics, and we've been talking about this a lot recently, we're really working hard to be a healthy church, healthy staff, healthy individuals. And in order to be a healthy church, that requires our people to be healthy.
Yep.
Including our staff and including me. So if I'm not healthy, if you're not healthy, if those who are called to manage and steward this gift of the church aren't healthy, why would we expect the church to be healthy, right?
Right.
And so one of our values is we're going to fail. And it's the difference between failing because I didn't do the work and failing because we tried something new and I didn't have all the answers, but we tried something new.
Yeah.
And there's freedom in being able to go, it's okay to fail.
Yeah.
Because all failure is feedback.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And when you can actually embrace that and go, okay, I don't have to have, including God, I'm going to fail at attaining the knowledge of God.
Mm. Yep.
With 100% certainty, I'm going to, which is interesting because what I wanted to originally talk about today was pride.
Well, because it does become a pride issue.
Yes, it does.
It really does.
Yeah.
It does become a pride issue. If I'm sitting here and I'm saying, God, I can't have a relationship with you because I don't know about you, like that's like elevating my knowledge above God, and that's a pride thing.
And the minute you think you've attained the knowledge of God,
That's a pride thing.
and you've now lost it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, and I tied that into our desert discussion that we
Yeah.
recently had as well. And I kind of got this image in my mind where in my own personal kind of development in this issue specifically, where it kind of felt like I was sitting in the desert with a book and a hammock.
Mm.
And I was comfortable in the hammock, but I was still searching for something in the book. But God was over in the oasis, and I didn't care to go because I was like, nope, I'm in here, and I'm in this, and I'm going to stay in this until I know what's going on, God. So stay over there because I'm going to figure this out. And he's like, bruh. You know?
Yeah.
Does that kind of measure up?
No,
Does
it
that make
does.
sense?
Well,
Because I'm going to watch how I say this. I love the desert.
yeah, you do.
I really do.
Yep. Remember, well, Jaden, okay, when we were first talking about Enneagram stuff, and you're like, I think I'm a 9. Do you remember this conversation? I said, why do you think you're a 9? Well, I kind of relate to everything. And then you said this statement. You said, like, for instance, Jason, sometimes I just like to, I'm like, I want to feel sad. So I'm going to go listen to a sad song to make myself feel sad. And I looked at you and went, what?
What?
You do what? Yeah, sometimes like if I want to feel sad or angry, if I want to feel angry, like, no, you're not already feeling angry? No, if I want to feel angry, I'll put on an angry song.
Actually, 9 times out of 10, sometimes it's that, but 9 times out of 10, it's I'm feeling kind of angry, and I'm going to just make it worse.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, first of all, that's not a 9. That's not the peacemaker who just doesn't feel, doesn't know what they feel.
Yeah.
And it's funny about that is that for years, and I've probably said it on the podcast, for years, I thought the goal of God was to have answers about God.
Yeah, yep, and that's,
And I thought the goal of the Bible was so that I could have answers. There's an entire guy, he calls himself the Bible answer man.
Yeah.
He has answers for everything, right? And there is, let's be clear, there are things that we do have to have answers for.
Of course.
How we get saved.
Yeah.
Um,
To have, okay, I think the goal is relationship with God, right? And this is just me. I know I'm very much minimizing it, but to me, though, you have to have information about someone to have a relationship with them. Like, I know things about you, Jason, and I have a relationship with you. And there's information in the Bible.
Yeah.
There is knowledge there. And that information points us to God, and we can have a relationship with him. It's just knowing that it's not going to have all the answers or all the information.
Well,
and I'm very cautiously saying that.
And actually, let me challenge the perspective of all.
Okay.
Okay, and this is okay. Here, I'm gonna bring my drink out.
Take a drink.
Use a
Ghost.
drink. Okay. This container has limited capacity.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what I do, what happens if I put too much in it?
It's going to overflow.
Okay. If I fill it to the top, is the whole thing filled?
Yeah.
Is it all filled?
Oh, you filled it to the top.
Does it have all liquid in the universe contained in it?
No, it's not.
But
all
that
filled.
whole thing is
It
all
is
filled.
Full.
It is full. That whole thing is filled.
Yeah.
This whole thing. Okay. What if our capacity to knowing God, you can know all that you can know about God?
Oh, sure. Yeah, and there's still so much more.
That's right. And the problem becomes is when you want to contain things that are outside of you. And so if you're constantly trying to say, well, I need to get more and more and more in there, well, there's only a few ways you can learn more about God. You have to expand the capacity of the container.
Or dump out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
dump out some of your presuppositions.
That's right.
Yeah.
And now there's still so much more to know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we say I can never know all of God, you're right, you can't. But you can know what your capacity to know about God.
Yeah.
You can know, but then you have to delight in the knowledge that there's so much more than you can know. But here's the part that intrigues me about this illustration. If I want to know more about God, what do I have to do? I either have to dump something out or I have to increase my capacity.
Yeah.
Which is the better option, to dump something out or increase capacity?
I'd say increase capacity.
Why?
Well, because it's not that what you have in there is invaluable, right? And to have more knowledge of him is really cool. One image that also just kind of went through my head is God also maybe extends different knowledge of his character and his being to different people. So sometimes I think there's also beauty in knowing that what you might know and what someone else might know could be different.
Yes.
And that's actually a really cool thing.
Yes. In fact, I think part of the gift of humanity, why you need the body of Christ,
Yeah.
is that you cannot know more about God without a community of people who have God as innately gifted them.
And is that part of expanding your capacity?
Yes.
Is expanding your relationships
Yes.
with the church and body of
Yes.
Christ?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so now, okay, so when you're like, Jason, how do I do this? Oh, okay, I'm going to use sound because this is part of your gifting.
So many illustrations today.
So many illustrations today. Okay. So we have a good friend, Justin Fairfax.
Yeah.
Does he know more about sound video production than you do?
Immensely.
Immensely more, okay? Now, you could either sit there and go, oh, I wish I knew as much as Justin.
Sure. Yeah, which is honestly a tendency
And
of mine.
there's a gift, or there's a sin there called envy.
Yep. That's
Right?
fine. It's not fine.
No, but that's a sin. We all have this, right?
Yes, yep.
But also we've moved into the sin of comparison.
Yep.
Okay, now check this out. What if God placed Justin in your life, not because God wants you to take everything Justin has to learn,
Yeah.
but because he wants you to be able to dip in the well of who he is with security of who you are, knowing that there are things that you're going to learn from Justin, but if your capacity is not opened, you're not going to receive any of it.
Oh, of course not.
So then how do you open capacity?
Yeah.